All right, good morning. We're going to get started. We're going to welcome Tricia and Wayne from the Real Estate Advocacy Alliance. I'm so excited to learn about the alliance, the organization, and the advocacy that they're bringing to us as real estate professionals. It's this whole industry is morphing between our very eye or in front of our very eyes, and it's super important that we know about this stuff. So, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. So we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. First, just especially like to thank Skip and Julie for the kind invitation to be here. So we're really honored to get to speak to your group today. So Wayne and I would just like to tell you a little bit about ourselves, also introduce our new venture, which we've launched, which is the Real Estate Advocacy Alliance, REAA for short. And so we're going to just walk through why we created this organization, what it stands for, and some of the common pitfalls that we saw during our decades-long careers and experience in real estate regulation at the Department of Real Estate, also known as DRE. So really our goal is to help provide some helpful context, not just around the California real estate law, but how licensees can now use our support services to help reduce risk and strengthen your practice. So most importantly today, though, we really want this just to be an open conversation. So we will have dedicated time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to enter it in the chat or raise your hand, and we'd be happy to answer that as best we can. So with that, we'll go ahead and begin, and we'll give a little bit of foundation about Wayne and I. So we bring 35 plus years of combined regulatory leadership, decision making, and enforcement insight during our time at the Department of Real Estate. So Wayne and I actually met during our work.
Anthony, there you go.
All right. So Wayne and I actually met at the Department of Real Estate, where Wayne served not only as a real estate commissioner, but also as our chief counsel. And then I last served as the assistant commissioner of enforcement. So together we've overseen and shaped, regulatory policy, licensing, investigations, enforcement, you name it. We were part of the decision-making team, and that really helped shape policy at the Department of Real Estate. So REAA was founded by two seasoned public servants, and we want to help elevate the real estate practice and reduce your risk. So we do bring unmatched regulatory experience to help licensees, brokers, salespersons, attorneys navigate compliance and enforcement complexities really before they become a problem, before really those issues arise, and there are some things really to be concerned about. So Wayne and I co-founded this venture, and Wayne serves as our Chief Advocacy Officer and General Counsel, and I am the Chief Executive Officer. So with that, I'm going to just turn it over to Wayne right now, and he can share a little bit more in detail about his background.
All right. Well, thank you, Tricia, and thank you, Skip and Julie, for hosting us. And I'm so glad to be here. I've been a lawyer since 1980. I've been a real estate broker since 1988. Before I began working in the Department of Real Estate, I was director of homeownership at the California Housing Finance Agency. Before that, I was deputy secretary and general counsel of something known as the Business Transportation Housing Agency, which oversaw the Department of Real Estate. I enjoy real estate related issues. I've enjoyed them for years and years and years. I have family members who are real estate folks, realtors. Many years ago, I was a lawyer for Ralph's Grocery Company in Los Angeles. And I looked at some leasing issues, some land use issues. And before that, I worked for a developer and I did low and moderate income housing. So with that as a background, I applied to be appointed by the governor. I got appointed by Gray Davis. I then got appointed as chief counsel by Jeff Dabby, who was the commissioner at the time. And then I became real estate commissioner. And I have really enjoyed talking with real estate licensees, brokers, homeowners, home buyers, seniors who happen to be my neighbors about everything and anything real estate. Now, when I left the department, I kind of wanted to move to a new chapter. And so I started working with my brother. He has a foundation in Los Angeles. And I looked at some of the contracts he had. He did low and moderate income housing and he specialized in fine artworks. And so while I was doing that, it was interesting because people in the real estate industry reached out to me. They called me and asked if I could be an expert, if I would help them on certain issues. I had lawyers calling me. And so I was brought in as an expert witness in a couple matters, as a consultant. And right now I'm on call to be a witness for the state of California in a mortgage modification fraud case. And that's going to be in Southern California. And I'm the state's expert on mortgage fraud. So, and then Tricia and I have kept in touch over the years. And when Tricia said she was about to retire and was thinking about doing more in the field of real estate, helping to elevate the real estate practice that she saw, to help answer questions about the real estate law, I said, hey, maybe we can work together. And so that's how this came into being. We were chatting and said, we think that we can continue to help consumers in a smaller way, but really focus on real estate licensees, realtors who have reached out to us in the past to ask us about everything from compliance to issues that we saw, how they can be more professional. And so basically that's my background, and that's how I got to where I am right now with Tricia and this new entity.
All right, thank you, Wayne. And just a little bit about me. As I mentioned, my last role with the department, I was the Assistant Commissioner of Enforcement, also known as the Enforcement Chief. And in that role, I oversaw statewide enforcement operations. That includes the department's 5 district offices, the Mortgage Loan Activities Unit, and then our Cite and Fine program. So I spent a total of 23 years at the department, all in enforcement. So I started with a title, it was Deputy Commissioner, but it essentially was an investigator. And then I became a senior deputy commissioner. And then I went on to lead and manage the Sacramento District Office of Enforcement. And that office covered about 26 Northern California counties. And I really had the privilege and loved that role, mentoring and leading and managing an incredible team of investigators and support staff there. So over my career at the department, I helped shape enforcement policy, implemented new legislation, and I oversaw well over 10,000 enforcement investigations, reviewed complaints, and involving everything from fraud, misrepresentation, broker supervision failures, advertising or basic compliance issues, and just a host of other violations of the real estate law. So throughout my time at the department, I not only saw enforcement, the legal responsibility of investigating the consumer complaints and enforcing the real estate law, but I was really passionate about educating the licensees and educating the industry really to prevent the unnecessary harm to the consumers. As you know, the department's highest statutory mission is the protection of the public. So very, very passionate about that. So I've given numerous presentations to industry, particularly around broker compliance and what is required of a broker according to the real estate law, and what the DRE would expect of a broker and how they operate their brokerage. So I still remain passionate about supporting licensees with just practical, clear guidance. So as Wayne mentioned, we met and thought that we could really provide some value here. And again, just happy that we were able to form this venture and hopefully provide that service to the licensees. So if you would like to learn a little bit more in depth about our background and the venture, please feel free to visit our website. It's there below, reaa.ca.com. And Wayne and I both have profiles on LinkedIn, and those are links there. And then at the end of the presentation, I do have a slide dedicated to all the ways that you can connect with us. So with that, now that you have a little bit of background, we wanted to share a little bit more about why we created REAA and really what we stand for. So one thing Wayne and I both saw, which we've mentioned, and even though we had different seats at the table and had different lens to look at issues, we saw that a lot of licensees, whether it's time, resources, support, really many they struggled with really interpreting and understanding what the real estate law required of them, what the DRE expected from a regulatory standpoint, and sometimes just that simple disconnect often led to preventable problems. So that's really why we formed this venture. And it was really to be that missing bridge to help brokers, salespeople, attorneys in this related field to navigate that regulatory landscape with more confidence and clarity, and ultimately to try and eliminate as best can those risks. So this is essentially our mission. So we believe in strengthening the industry from the inside out, and that means giving real estate professionals, not just brokers, but salespeople and even attorneys, the insight and support that they need to lead with confidence, to protect their clients, and stay aligned with the California real estate law. So really, we want this venture to be grounded in our values, and it's not just about public protection, but the ethical practice and the legal obligations. So that's really what the foundation of trust is in this profession. So first, we want to champion ethical and transparent practices. So that may, sound simple, but, based on our experience, even a small decision, like how something is marketed or advertised or disclosed, could have ripple effect. So our goal, again, is just to help agents, brokers, salespeople, really to avoid those problems and provide that clarity. Two, we want to promote informed compliance. So we want to, bridge that gap between those real world practices, legal obligations, and really just share what we know regulators are looking at. One, because that's what we looked at for our numerous years at the department. So we just really want to help bridge that gap with clear, practical guidance. And then also, we want to support professionals before problems escalate. So we just want to provide that insight and strategy to help licensees avoid costly possible civil litigation or an administrative action. So really helping the industry, the licensees course correct before any significant issues arise. And then lastly, we just want to empower public trust in real estate. So it's just not about transactions. It's about people that make these life-changing decisions. As you all know, real estate is definitely one of the largest investments that somebody is going to make. So we just believe professional accountability and fairness should be the standard and not the exception. So Wayne, is there anything that you'd like to add here, or
Yeah, what I
move
yeah,
on?
yeah, what I want to add is that our prior positions, uh, in our prior positions, we were like the police. We were the cops walking the beat. We knew what we were looking for. We got the complaints, and now we're able to be much more open with people who call us. We can be provide the candor that we might not have been able to do before as the police investigating various problems in the industry. And we actually adored our jobs at the DRE. However, this allows us to do what we did there before, but on a different level. And it permits us to have a much deeper, I think, engagement with the real estate industry than we were able to before. And it was interesting. Many years ago, I spoke at a fraud forum in Ventura, and there was a woman there from CAR, and she said something like, "Hey, realtors, if you've done something wrong or you think you're doing something wrong," she goes, "don't talk to him. He's like the cop. Don't talk to him. Talk to us." And I'm not certain that anyone at CAR could say, "Okay, here's what DRE is looking at." But we know what DRE looks at. We know the biggest issues. We see them. We read the reports, and some of them are relatively easy fixes. And we want to make certain that the industry has some resource like us, where we can say, "Here's how you can fix this. Here's how you can move to the next level up." And so much of it's just like compliance gaps. And when I was commissioner, I always told everyone I spoke with in the real estate industry, we don't want to harm anyone who wants to do the right thing. If you want to comply with the law, we want to help you. And that's what Trish and I want to do here. We want to help people comply with the real estate law, comply with the commissioner's regulations. And some people I know are afraid to ask, or they don't know what to ask. We talked to the client the other day, who was asking us about supervision issues, and it was quite interesting because she knew what the law was, but she wasn't quite certain how to get to the right next level. And we think we can help in that regard. So anyway, Tricia, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. So based on our experience, and again, decades-long experience at the department, there were some common themes, some gaps that we routinely saw at the department. And one of the things that we routinely saw, kind of always part of a complaint, or when we delved into an investigation a little deeper, let's say it was against a salesperson or affiliate of a broker, was this lack of meaningful broker supervision, this inadequate oversight of affiliated agents. And I don't necessarily mean micromanagement, but really that foundational oversight that ensures that affiliated licensees understand expectations, they follow the policies and procedures in place, and they know who to go to for guidance. And so often, during my time and Wayne's, we would see brokers who on many levels didn't even know what their affiliates were doing, whether it was in loans or property management or how they market themselves or in advertising. So sometimes it is just a simple misstep, but it could escalate to something more problematic. So a lot of times there were just no clear policies and procedures in place. So and that's really where we saw a lot of the cracks. And so I won't spend too much time talking specifically about laws or regulations, but in Commissioner Regulation 2725 really helps define what reasonable supervision is and states that a broker must establish policies and procedures in a system to monitor these policies and procedures. So sometimes brokers just need a little help and guidance to really walk through what does that reasonable supervision look like? And that's really where we'd like to come in and help explain that. Wayne, is there anything you'd like to share further on
Yeah.
broker supervision? Okay.
On that, Trish and I actually have chuckled about this. There are some folks who have said, well, I created policies, procedures, and systems, and that's all I have to do. And I actually had a discussion with a lawyer who said that, well, they have policies, procedures, and systems, and here's what they look like, but they don't do anything with them. There's like no supervision. It's like the first and foremost rule is that there needs to be broker supervision. So what these people have done is they've said, well, I've created these things, like I have rules on broker supervision. And you say, do you actually supervise? Well, no. And so that's obviously that's the link that was missing. And so that's what we also are looking to do, bridge the gaps between the law, the regulations, and what's actually happening out there in the real world. Tricia?
That's exactly right, Wayne. So next, a common area pretty much goes hand in hand with what we were talking about with broker supervision, but gaps in just understanding the California real estate law, just unfamiliar with the regulatory obligations. Oftentimes we would hear, well, they would talk to someone else in the industry or just see how others were conducting themselves, and well, that's how others do it. But sometimes that's not in compliance. That's not what the law actually says. So also there's times where the law is updated, it changed. There's new legislation, and so updated advisories and policies. So sometimes those expectations are evolving. So we also see sometimes, many times, I've had conversations with licensees where they just were unfamiliar that they were required to do something what the law says. So Wayne, I'm sure you probably have something you'd like to add here.
What I always tell realtors, and not everybody's a realtor, obviously, is read what the California Association of Realtors puts out about legal updates. Go to a meeting. There's Gov Hutchinson. He always updated the forms, and he's a good source. The Department of Real Estate puts out a bulletin periodically, and in that bulletin, when I was there, and they still doing it now, they're putting updates and areas that should have particular attention. What I've been doing on my LinkedIn page is I write a lot of stuff, and I post a lot of stuff, and it's all to help people understand what the real estate law is and the regulations. And some of them are not difficult at all. It's just that if you don't know what you don't know, that opens folks up to an accusation, a lawsuit. And so it's just keeping informed, staying educated, and we can help with that. CAR helps with that, I know. And just reading everything that the Department of Real Estate puts out on a periodic basis. Tricia?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So they actually have in one of their real estate bulletins, the whole bulletin is dedicated to legislative updates and how it may impact you as a licensee. So definitely look for that that bulletin.
And I want to say some of it's very dry, obviously, and it depends. And
It's not
depends who
sometimes
writes it.
exciting. Yeah.
But you'll see all these things will say, AB so and so and SB so and so, and the law changed so and so. But much of it has no applicability generally. Some of it will be on landlord tenant. Some of it will be on some issue that you might not even deal with. So just look at the bulletins, and then take a highlighter and just highlight the things that apply to you, your practice, or someone else that you work with who you want to help educate and inform.
Right. Wayne, would you like to talk also a little bit about fiduciary duty and professional standards? I know you're real passionate about this. You've actually written a lot on this topic. Some of those articles are actually posted on our website. But Wayne really is, I will just say, he's an expert on this topic. So I'll go ahead and let you speak to fiduciary duty and professional standards.
And I won't take a lot of time on this. The key point I want to raise about fiduciary duty is it's not in the California real estate law. There are points from the fiduciary duty obligations that are incorporated into the real estate law, but fiduciary duty was essentially imposed on real estate licensees through case law. And what the court said is, real estate licensees, you have superior knowledge and training, and you're dealing with people who don't understand what you're doing with regard to real estate transactions, with regard to mortgage lending, and you cannot take advantage of your clients, and you always have to put the interests of your clients first. And it's so fascinating because there are more and more cases out there where they allege breach of fiduciary duty. And just so you know, just I don't want to sound like a lawyer, but the regular standard of care, it's just plain old standard of care. You know, you want to treat people well, you don't want to take advantage of them. But the fiduciary duty is a higher standard. It's the highest standard. And if you breach it, there are damages that flow from it. And we've seen too many cases where a real estate licensee has not shared information that they should have with their clients. They've taken advantage of their clients. They've put people into bad loans. They have put people into homes that they should not have put them into. They have put their own interests ahead of their clients. And this is a huge issue, by the way, with regard to the whole commission litigation and commissions. There should be a discussion about commissions. There should be a discussion about dual agency. All of that stuff goes to fiduciary duty and beyond. But the main point is that every real estate licensee who's acting as an agent on behalf of someone else owes a fiduciary duty. That's the highest duty to the client, to put that client interest first, to maintain loyalty to that client, and to not put the agent's interest ahead of the client with regard to a transaction, some kind of a mortgage loan obligation. And it's really, there's no magic to this, and it's not rocket science, but so many people will say, well, yeah, we have a fiduciary duty, but there's really no understanding of what that means. And if you want to talk with me about it more, I'll be glad to talk offline. And like Tricia said, I've written about it, and there's all sorts of things online about fiduciary duty. The key is it's your duty to your client, and just understand that there can be no advantage to you above and beyond, above or ahead of your client's interests. Those need to prevail. Tricia?
All right. Thank you, Wayne.
Sure.
So in the next slide, we're just going to walk through based on what we have seen and based on these gaps that we saw, how we can work with brokers, salesperson, legal professionals to turn what our insight into prevention, hopefully for your practice. So we have these 4 core services. Again, because we saw this real need to help the real estate industry prevent problems before they arise. So we really want to give this kind of strategic, behind the scenes insight that really sometimes becomes clear after having conversations with us. And the first one I want to talk about is regulatory advisory. And that's where we can help interpret complex laws, assess exposure, and guide ethical decision making. So we're just not going to quote the code and what the statute and regulation says, but we're going to help translate that into real life and give that practical advice so you can move forward with confidence. The next one is pre-enforcement strategy. This is where we'd assist you identify and resolve risks before they become liabilities. Wayne and I, we've seen too many professionals. Sometimes they'd wait until a complaint is filed. We've had to contact them, and then they really start assessing their brokerage or their practices. So our job here would just help you to identify and resolve those red flags before they become formal issues. So think of us like maybe a risk prevention team. So not so much damage control after the fact. So our next service would be case and file analysis. This is where we would provide seasoned insight on licensing, complaint, or transaction issues. So here we'd focus on documents, patterns, and look at things and give that practical risk review. So that could be where, again, we've seen thousands of cases and we know what investigators are looking for. I reviewed investigators' work. I signed off on cases and whether we went forward to formal action. So I know what should be in a transaction file. I know some of these core elements. So I'm going to be able to look at that with the regulator's lens and help you stay compliant in your operations. And so last is attorney collaboration. So we're not here to replace your legal counsel, but this service is really just supporting the regulatory side of the legal equation. So Wayne's experience as the commissioner and chief counsel, and then my experience in enforcement would really just help navigate those possible tricky cases where legal and regulatory issues overlap. So I know Wayne can speak to his experience outside of the regulatory lens, where attorneys have appreciated that perspective, because Wayne and me have lived inside the enforcement process. So we know how to position a case or file to minimize that risk. And I think, Wayne, is there something you want to add here?
Yeah, what I want to add, because I'm looking at the screen as all of you are, and it says guide ethical decision making. Now we're not ethicists, but and the other thing I wanted to mention is at the Department of Real Estate, there's no enforcement of ethics laws or ethics canons. There's just enforcement of the real estate law and the regulations. Now, as realtors, you also have your code of ethics. And I'm always surprised when maybe I shouldn't be, and maybe you're not surprised either, but I've talked to so many realtors who I've said, well, in your ethics canons, it says so-and-so, and they're not aware of that. And one of the ethics canons actually reflects the fiduciary duty. And so when something goes haywire for a real estate licensee, oftentimes there's regulatory scrutiny by the Department of Real Estate. There's an ethics complaint lodged by a realtor against another realtor through the California Association of Realtors or through a local association. There can be civil litigation, and in the worst case scenario, there can also be criminal filings. Now, we're focused primarily on the California real estate law and commissioner's regulations, and we also, though, have talked to people on the ethics canons, because I had a matter where a brokerage was the respondent of a DRE complaint and was fighting that. And then there was an ethics case as well. And so we want to help in any way that we can and just give sort of common sense, practical advice about how realtors, real estate licensees can be in compliance and then elevate the practice so there's not going to be any regulatory scrutiny. You know, if you do it well and you have all the systems in place and there's oversight and supervision, there shouldn't be a problem. Now, if there is, that's where we can jump in and help. And like Tricia said, we want to help with in any way we can. We created this. We don't know what will come of it, but we do love speaking with realtors. We like the industry a lot. We love the issues, and with our background in enforcement, oversight, and case handling, it's sort of easy for us to look at these things. And I know for most real estate licensees, realtors, if they get an inquiry from the department, it's kind of scary. And so we want to help. Tricia?
Yes. Thank you, Wayne. So how can brokers, brokerages, licensees use our services? So for regulatory advisory, if let's say you're unsure what the law actually says about a particular scenario, maybe it's supervision structure, advertising approach, possibly drafting office policies, have a gray area decision, and you just want a second opinion. We can help interpret those complex laws and really assess your exposure. So again, instead of going off what somebody said, you can call us and we'd be happy to talk to you before, again, any issues escalate. For pre-enforcement strategy, that's really, we're going to spot hopefully those compliance gaps before they become an issue. We are going to give you that strategic input to help strengthen your policies and reduce internal risk. So it could be you have gray areas in your team operations. You want us to take a look again at your supervision, your office structure. So we just want to, again, help you identify those gaps. For case and file analysis, that could be where you want us to take a look at a transaction file, maybe a complaint, an internal issue that you're concerned with, but we can give it a second look and we can bring that regulator's eye to the table. Look at what's documented, what's missing, look at your current records or policies to see if they would hold up to regulatory scrutiny. So for attorney collaboration, those of you that either you are an attorney or you work with legal counsel, we just want to help support behind the scenes. So whether we're helping a law firm on how DRE is likely to view a case, help provide strategy memo, or just offering insights during litigation. We just want to be that valuable resource, like I said, that's behind the scenes. So Wayne, is there anything else that you'd like to say in regards to our services?
You know, I think you covered it all very well, Trish. I know with regard to attorney collaboration, I've gotten a number of calls from law firms where they ask questions from everything from, what does this mean? Do you know the lawyer at DRE who's handling this case? How bad is this for my client? Can you look at this transaction file? And all sorts of questions like that. And that's relatively the bread and butter that lawyers are dealing with, and they call, and it's not easy for us, but we're familiar with we're familiar with what DRE does. We're familiar with the administrative process, and we can look at a case where it stands and then give the best advice that we possibly can. And obviously we can't guarantee a particular result, but we're willing to offer the very best advice that we can. And while you were talking, Tricia, something popped up, I guess in a little chat, and it said, can we focus on, or do we focus on, or do we have the experience in MLO issues, broker and MLO issues? And the answer is yes. Tricia, her group oversaw the MLO unit, I believe, at the end.
Yes.
And so the answer is yes. And back to you, Tricia.
Great. Thanks, Wayne. I just wanted to say one more thing here. So if you would like to read a little bit more in depth about our services, again, just want to welcome you to visit our website, and the address is there below. So with that, we'd love to open it up to a dialogue, conversation. We'd love to hear from you. What are your biggest compliance worries? Are there any gray areas that you navigate every day? And then really, how can we, because we just launched this, and so we'd love to see how we can better serve professionals like you. So Wayne, is there anything you'd like to say here?
No,
Or
I just want to say,
happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we'll answer any questions, and I would love to hear from you as to what issues you're seeing, what challenges you have, and what you think of other practitioners out there. Are they missing something, and how could we help, either in putting together an article, educational material? How can we work with you to help educate and kind of elevate people who might be in a position where they want to do the right thing, but they just don't know how to do the right thing?
So I have a question. So we are seniors real estate specialists,
Mm-hmm.
and in the practice, or in the exchange that we have with our clients, our senior homeowners and the families of senior homeowners, regarding our fiduciary obligation as a seniors real estate specialist and a realtor with, all capital letters.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we find, and that I like to teach to, is when we recognize that our client, or mostly our client, our homeowner, if they're being subjected to what we might deem as something that's inappropriate and could be on the verge of being, abuse. Could be from a family member, it could be from a spouse, it could be from any one number of sources, and we engage with all of those sources, all of those interactions when we're working with the senior homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
So with our fiduciary duty, I want to teach to when it is that appropriate that we make note, we can contact services. How do we handle that? Because it is a bit of an extension from our regular realtor practice. What do you guys think about that?
I have dealt with that myself, with people I know, and it's always challenging. It's always difficult, and the question always is there any abuse? Is there any wrongdoing by a family member or friend vis-a-vis that senior? And I'm not a psychologist, and it's difficult to say when that reporting should be done. I would almost recommend that you talk with the groups that take those reports and get advice from them. I couldn't give any solid advice on this. The fiduciary duty that you have goes to your client, and it's to provide the best advice, to give them the loyalty that you have to give them, and to make certain their interests prevail first and foremost ahead of yours. But as far as anything dealing with abuse, misbehavior, misconduct by others in their orbit, I couldn't tell you about where you should report, when you should report, and obviously it's a frightening thing for to see that as someone engaged with the senior, and it's more frightening for the senior to be the victim or to be um, taken advantage of by other people around them. And obviously, you've probably seen it too, where a family member wants a senior to take out a loan or to do a reverse mortgage or to sell a home, and that person may not want to do any of those things, and it's the family member who's pushing them. And so it is a question of getting a sense of what's happening. The question is how competent from a mental standpoint the senior is, so you can have the discussion to say, what is it that you want? Because I want to represent your interests. I want to help you. And if you feel like they're being uh, treated badly or they're being pushed into something, I think that's where you need to take the next step, or possibly take the next step and figure out where you can report this and how you can get some help for them.
Can I
Tricia?
just interrupt and say that we did cover this in the Adult Protective Services session on April 1st, if you want to review that again. But don't forget, as fiduciaries, we are required to report any abuse to the authorities when we see it. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Althea.
Hi. So I have ended up managing a lot of agents at a brokerage now, and I've noticed and I've been a broker for 28 years. And so I've seen a lot of issues come and go over the years. And so one of the things about your company, which is great, but I know the compliance comes from, both the agents themselves and then, the brokerage. And so I don't know if you're offering any continuing education courses or something like on like a, how to be the best agent ever series of courses or something, because I think that would be extremely useful. And then I had another question too.
Okay. Now we and Tricia, I see you disappeared somewhere. Are you still there, Tricia?
Oh, I am, maybe
Oh, good.
because yeah. No, I'm still here.
What I want to say is I think our offerings are going to evolve over time. We just started this. And so we're just kind of trying to find our footing and see if there's really any interest in what we have and what we can offer. And you're absolutely right, Althea. There is a disconnect, I think, between what brokers have to do and what salespersons have to do. And it was so fascinating when I'd go out and speak when I was real estate commissioner, and before that when I was chief counsel. I would have many brokers say, and this used to make me laugh, and I was shocked, and I would say, you need to read the real estate law. Brokers would say, well, I don't want to teach my salespeople anything because they might take over my business. Then they'll know more than I do. It's like you have
Maybe that's not such a bad thing, huh?
yeah. But it was so curious, the notion that you hire salespeople, but you don't train them, you don't supervise them. You basically say, there's your desk, there's a phone, and don't ever talk to me. And the interesting thing about your question is neither Tricia nor I have been practitioners, but we know where the big problem areas are in practice. But we've not run a brokerage. We don't sell property, but we see where all the compliance gaps are. And so we obviously like to have a dialogue like we're having now, because it is truly intriguing how there are so many brokers out there who don't see their salespeople as anyone they're responsible for. And it's just intriguing. And then there are other brokers, as you know, who know less than their salespeople. Then we had at DRE what we called renter brokers. And they're brokers who basically say, take my license and use my name and my license and do whatever you want to do, because we're not involved. And you just pay us on a monthly fee. In fact, we had one case I remember a while back, and the broker actually said that we asked, what do you do in connection with this brokerage? He goes, well, I just get a check. I get a check from these people running it. And there was no oversight, no management, no supervision. And so we took that person's license. But the law is fairly clear as far as actually how to practice and what to do in a brokerage operation. We rely on brokers that we know, and we talk with people, and we've done that in the past. I used to talk to folks at CAR all the time. I talk to practitioners I know. I have a sister-in-law who's a real estate salesperson. My aunt was a real estate broker, and I consider them good. And so I would just talk with them and say, what are you doing? How are you doing this? And then I would share those things. But as far as educating people, we want to do that. We put stuff out, and I don't know, Tricia, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that is definitely a question that I saw at the department. I would routinely, and actually for many years, annually, I would give a presentation at the Sacramento Association of Realtors during it was like their broker education series. And I would come in and talk to them about broker compliance and from a regulatory, what is the California real estate law say that is what a broker is required to do. And that I think does help set the foundation. And then, like Wayne mentioned, we're not practitioners, but I do believe that that is very useful. I'm happy to speak with you, and maybe we can set something up, because I think there's often times where just walking through what the policies and procedures are, and then having a system where your affiliates know these are the expectations. I understand, again, we are not practitioners, but often hearing issues about brokers, they're having some difficulty, and I'll just say having the hand on the pulse. But that's really where those policies and procedures are obviously not only required, but just helpful in operating your brokerage. But that is definitely something that I think Wayne and I can speak to, at least to help foundationally set what the law requires. And then to go back to the Sacramento Association of Realtors. So I would come in and speak from that regulatory lens. And then right after I spoke, they would have a seasoned broker come in that helped give that practical, this is what it looks like in practice, essentially, to operate a brokerage. So it was essentially those two different perspectives, which I think was incredibly helpful. And this series was designed mainly for new brokers or those salespeople who were interested in becoming a broker. So, but that's a great question, and definitely something that Wayne and I would be happy to talk with you further, and something that I think we could speak to and possibly deliver to your team.
Oh, I'll
Well,
put
I've
my
been
contact information in the chat, but I had another question. So apparently, I just saw the situation come up with, another broker from another part of town, and when we see bad behaving brokers, I mean, nobody wants to file like a DRE complaint against them. And I think probably nothing gets done. And, there doesn't seem to be any alternative to, other agents who don't know what they're doing. And I think, honestly, the bar is very low for real estate, and it shouldn't be, given how much money is involved in these transactions now. So I just wanted to find out if there are any options there. And then also what you're doing is very similar to the newly created group by Jason Haber and Maurizio from the agency are doing, the American Real Estate Association.
Yep.
And I don't know, they have similar goals. And part of it is to, I think we can agree to raise the bar of entry and increase education so that, people can act as professionals and know what they're doing.
Right.
And it's not a career that somebody is like, well, I think I can make a lot of quick money and I'll just go into this. Because I
Right.
also seeing a lot of people who got their license in 2021, now their licenses are lapsing and they're not renewing, which probably
Right.
is a good thing.
Right.
I want to just comment quickly. When you say people engaged in bad behavior, brokers engaged in bad behavior, and you think it violates the real estate law, or your clients think it violates the real estate law regulations, I would file a complaint with DRA.
Yes, I was
They
just
have the time, they have the resources to investigate these things. I have heard from realtors who have filed ethics complaints through the local ethics boards that nothing happens there. And I was involved in an ethics complaint against a realtor, and the local realtor board did nothing. But I can tell you, with regard to the DRE, they actually are doing things. Now, with regard to your issue about having greater prerequisites, greater training, more education, more requirements to get a real estate license. Trish and I both understand your point on that. However, I want to tell you, I don't see that changing at all. The department can't make any changes in that regard. The requirements are statutory. And as you probably know, there are many legislators who believe that there should be fewer requirements, a lower bar to get licensure in California, because there are a lot of people who are unemployed, who have difficulty finding work. And so they've talked about even lowering the bar. Now, I always fought to keep it as it was, talked with people about actually enhancing some of the requirements, but I just don't see that happening practically through the legislature that exists in California. Tricia?
I'm just chomping at the bit right now because there's so much I want to say, and we're like over time right now. And I
Yeah.
reached out to you and Tricia on LinkedIn because this is so close to home, and Julie knows, and I don't want to disregard or discount any really quality placement advisors out there, but there's a 30-year-old brokering senior business going on out there that is not, if they had to abide by the code of ethics that real estate agents, they're breaking every rule, and a billion-dollar industry would like spontaneously combust overnight.
Right.
They had to follow the code of ethics. And so these brokers, senior placement agencies, advisors, it's non-regulated, it's
Right.
not, and I think you were talking about it was kind of had to take a phone call. And this is where they need the education. They need
Right.
the education because they're breaking the rules every day. They're making decisions for seniors, a very vulnerable population. They're not educated, and their focus is not to help the senior with the long-term financial plans.
And
Yeah,
just
and that's an industry. Yeah, that's an industry that we cross paths on now.
Right.
The seniors
Right.
real estate specialists, and there is some legislation right now going on in Texas that's starting to address that. But go ahead, Wayne.
I was going to say that is something where a strong legislative advocacy effort by you and others would really help. But
I am, and I just wanted to kind of, because I have time, is I actually been contacted. AARP gave somebody there's an investigation going on in addition to the investigation with Place for Mom, and they're looking for to get information from people like you, because we're seeing real estate professionals are crossing paths and doing placement.
Sure.
And so now we're getting in this hybrid area, which real estate agents should be doing this. They should be getting more involved, senior real estate agents, instead of having these placement agencies that are not educated and don't have the ethical nor educational background.
And what you're saying is frightening in connection with
It's
no, no,
crazy.
what's frightening is you have people who say, well, I'm a specialist in this area, but they don't have a license. They don't have
No,
it, and they don't have a fiduciary duty, by the way. If they're not engaged in real estate licensed activities on behalf of someone else, there is no fiduciary duty. And what they're going to argue is, well, I'm a residential specialist for seniors, and this is not governed by any law. I am not acting as a real estate agent because I'm not engaged in 10131 activities or 10130 activities.
I
And there,
understand.
yeah, no,
And,
I'm
and
just
and in
saying,
2000, in 2004, 2005,
yeah,
before that, if you look in like example, San Luis Obispo County, there was 30 conservators listed because you
right,
can conserve your neighbor, you can conserve
right,
what there was
right,
no process for this. And in 2005, 2006, now we have professional fiduciaries. You cannot just conserve anybody. You have to be court
right.
appointed. You have to be licensed. Why we're not doing reform for people that are placing and brokering seniors when we're having such an issue of people are outliving their retirement, there's not enough money for long-term care. How are we letting a billion-dollar industry broker seniors?
And I want to tell you, I think it should be regulated. And the question is, what legislators are out there that you could reach out to? There are a bunch of new legislators. There's Catherine Stefani from Northern California. Maggie Krell used to be in the AG's office. She's now an assembly person. They're always looking for legislative ideas that would be receptive to other legislators. And this issue raising is one that's really important. And the other thing I want to say about fiduciary duty, you can say to someone, you're a fiduciary, you can impose a duty on them and they don't care. They don't follow it. They don't care. And then because the only enforcement of that is through civil litigation.
Well,
And so,
there's nobody to report these things. I mean, I could tell you some nightmare stories
right,
that you
right,
would never believe
right.
that what they're doing, like that there's nobody to report them to. What if
Right,
they do
right,
report them?
right.
How do you follow up? How do you
You know, you're absolutely right. It's kind of a weird hybrid because it's kind of health services, it's kind of residential, it's kind of senior services. So where does this go? Where should it belong? But this legislature, as you know, they're not afraid to do rules, new laws,
Well, I've
regulation.
reached out to you and Tricia, and I would love to connect.
Okay,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, also because of what I'm doing with my colleague is we are talking to corporate level senior placement agencies, right? So
Yeah.
they get
Yeah.
their ears open.
And Jessica, the other thing is, and you likely know this because you've talked to people about this, is government agencies, they're kind of in silos. And so
I know.
if you were to call DRA, they go, well, we can't deal with that because we just deal with the laws that we have.
Oh, I
And
did.
so,
I called DRE. I did CARS, NARS.
right,
I
right.
did HUD. I put them all in the same email chain. Like, I don't know, talk to this. I don't know. They all counted.
Precisely. But what you're telling me suggests that what there should be is a new regulatory scheme or a new
100%.
regulatory approach dealing with this that the legislature should address and think about and put in place.
Well, your 800-pound gorilla place your mom has their own lobbyists, but now they're even cutting them down now that there's an investigation going
Mhm.
on, and it's like nobody wants to touch that anymore
Right,
because it's like this is getting absolutely bananas, out of control, out of hand.
right, right.
Can I
Anyway,
ask
I'm a
what
little
your
passionate about that.
I'll
Can I ask
segue
what
with
your
another quick question. I did notice on reviewing your website that you do have some consumer facing services,
Yes.
and that we do want to collaborate and use you as a resource for when we work with our senior homeowners as a supporting organization to educate our senior homeowners and the families of senior homeowners. Mostly the adult children is that's who we talk to. So if you could
Can
tell us
I
a little
ask
bit
what
about that.
your fees are like?
Pardon?
Can I ask what your fees are like?
What's funny is Tricia and I have yet to decide what we're going to charge for our
Oh, so it's
service.
free.
Well,
So
it,
far.
there's been conversations, but I think what we would look at, Wayne, and what we've talked about is depending on if you'd like us a long term as our kind of in-house regulatory advisor, that you can have us essentially on like a retainer, and we'd monthly be available. Email us, call us, and we would essentially be your in-house regulatory advisor. We could also per issue or per file look at charging hourly. So I think we do have somewhat of a structure, but it would be where we'd want to meet, essentially have a discovery call, see what the issues are, what specifically you're looking for, and then we could base our fee off of case by case, and really looking at the core issues and
Right.
how we can best serve you.
And the other thing on the consumer question that you asked, we want to help consumers who have been significantly harmed by illegal conduct, unlicensed activities, or where we can actually provide some assistance. The thing that we've found is where we've said we're willing to talk with consumers and look at consumer issues is we get stuff. We got one today where someone was complaining about CAR and their lobby, and there's stuff that we almost can't comment on. It's where we can't help it all. What we want to do is find areas where we can actually be helpful, and with consumers who've been harmed, we can provide referral services. We can say contact this person at DRE. Maybe you should contact a district attorney. Maybe you should, and there are all sorts of resources that they might not be aware of. But our focus is almost exclusively going to be for real estate licensees, but we do want to help consumers where we can and when we can.
Got it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else? And you can do your bitching and moaning again if you want. I mean,
You're too funny.
well, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to thank you again for this opportunity. And just here on our slide are just the multiple ways that you can connect with us. We'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I would probably say, especially for Wayne, very visible there, sharing great content, articles, things that are relevant to the industry. I've posted some content and articles there as well, and we're just getting started on Facebook and Instagram, but we'd love to follow. Much of what we share on LinkedIn that'll carry over to Facebook and Instagram. So we're just really excited and hope that we can be of service and provide that value to the industry. So Wayne, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I kind of want to just echo what you just said, and that is that we really appreciate your time putting this together, and to say that we really do love the real estate industry and interacting with people who are involved in it. It's a great industry, and we've met with and worked with some of the best, and we've also seen some of the worst of the worst. And the question is, how do you get more people on the good side and then help move them to an elevated posture where they're acting truly as professionals? And on the issue of those folks out there who are taking advantage of people, who might be taking advantage of people, it makes my blood boil, because no one should take advantage of people by claiming they're specialists or experts and they have no particular license, they have no particular good background. And a long time ago, when I was real estate commissioner, I think, or maybe I was chief counsel, I wrote a thing on these people who come up with fake designations. As you know, CAR and NAR, they have designations where people have to go through training and they study and they get a special designation. There are a bunch of people just make up a designation. So I could call myself, let's see, senior referral expert. I'm an SFE, senior referral expert. And it's like, where'd you get that training? I just made it up. Right?
Well, the government does that all the time.
Well, you know, the consumer is getting weary and unaffected by all the alphabet letters behind
Absolutely.
people's names. And so what I'm striving to do, and people in my industry are that we work together, is create a much better understanding and dissemination of that information to the consumer. I start spelling things out. So as a seniors real estate specialist, they don't know what SRES. That it doesn't mean anything
Right.
to them.
Right. That's a good point. I remember once I got a letter on some guy, and it had his name, and then it said NCM after that. And so I knew what that meant, and I showed it to some people in the office. They go, "Wow, what's that designation?" I go, "It's non compos mentis. It means he's not mentally competent." And that, and that was actually the term that a court used, and those are the initials after his name. But some people thought, "Wow, that must really mean something important."
Michelin, did you have a quick question?
It's more of a comment, and excuse my hoarseness, I have a cold. But I got in a little late, but I did hear some things I want to clarify. Number one, some of these agencies that do referrals for seniors, I thought, and I'm almost sure that they have been guests on SRES, and I've worked some, and I thought, and I think I did look them up, they were licensees, but they specialize in referring their clients to real estate agents who want to sell their property or whatever. But no,
I was going to say, and Julie's
I
shaking
don't
her
want to
head
name
no.
names, but I can call out some. If you need me to,
But
I can call out some names. But I want to know how. I thought I did see something behind their name that they were licensees.
Can I talk to this because I want to help
Yes.
everybody, and I'm sending you
Yes.
and Trisha some information. It's kind of like you have real estate agents that go, maybe I should do placement now, and then you have now senior placement agencies. They'll partner with real estate agencies. They'll create. I'm a referral source for everything, for home care, for real estate. I'm a referral agent. I am a referral agent. I just told you everybody that I'm making that up, but I am. And
She is.
and yeah, I am. I am. I like to connect. So, but you're seeing we're coming into a new period of history, and I think that senior real estate, especially like you, Julie, I just give you mad props and what you're doing and your passion and getting and Skip, mad props, and just kind of really creating this level of education and also passion, also ethics. And that's
Right.
what's missing. And it's been missing. When you said that we're in different silos, you have no idea. You have no idea the silos that this industry has been in, especially for seniors.
Go ahead,
And
Althea.
I was just going to say something real quickly. Obviously, if someone is educated, competent, ethical, and they're doing the right thing, that's well and good. That's a great thing. The problem is the people who are not educated, not competent, not doing the right thing, and they shouldn't be doing this, and yet they have this sort of amorphous area where they can step in and say, "I am."
Well,
A
because
senior
you have people like me that were in the business for 20 years
Yeah.
in home care that got spun out, and I could name 5 right now that go, oh well, I'm just going to become a placement specialist now. I have friends that are placement specialists in one state, right? They live in one state, but they're placement agents in another. They're not even that. They're just handling phone calls. There are tools, there are people out there that are teaching people how to broker seniors with just their cell phone and just their laptop. That they're teaching people how to do this now.
And this obviously is a huge issue listening to you. And
I
I'm
got a
telling
lot of
you,
passion about it.
no, but it requires a legislative fix.
No
And
kidding, and I've been
and
trying.
no, and a focus and educating legislators, the public. And because obviously I see a couple of you, and I shouldn't say a whole bunch, but a number of you who have the specialty designation after your name. That's important. But I don't know if the regular public has any idea what that means, what kind of background you have, and that they should go to you.
And I'll tell
But
you, I want to answer that to you too. And I hate to
yes,
be a bulldozer, but I have to tell you this, that after 20 years of home care, I'm going to tell you why there's always silos, because the lack of planning, and I spoke to thousands of families over 20 years, and I could tell you that 95% of every caller that I got was this was happening to them right here and right now.
right,
And
right,
that's why there's this lack of navigation. I mean, I think we're turning the corner now because it's becoming too big of an issue, and people are living longer and outliving their retirement. People are outliving their retirement, but they still got the equity in the homes, and now that's why antennas are going up.
right, 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 right. Now, where do you,
I
where
just
do you,
wanted
where
to
do you?
say something
Oh,
too.
sure.
I've worked as, I'm an attorney and a real estate broker and a gerontologist, and I've worked in senior living for a luxury retirement community, CCRC, that was a real estate purchase operated by Sunrise Senior Living. And so I've dealt with a lot of placement people, real estate agents, and a lot of their marketing was done through A Place for Mom. I don't know what they do now, but there was a lot of issues because the independent placement people who are actually coming into the communities were losing their commission because A Place for Mom claimed these people as clients, and I think there was legislation to stop that. But one of the major issues that no one's discussing is when people move into these assisted living communities, CCRCs, retirement communities, the most important document is the contract, and no one reads that. They rely on a salesperson who gives it to them. There's no one to read it. And in fact, as a lawyer, that's what I do. I review these contracts, and most lawyers have no idea that you can't change them. They don't understand what things mean. They don't know what questions to ask for. And I think that's a bigger thing that unlicensed placement people have no clue about. And, there is no license. I mean, I guess everyone's in license, but that is the main thing that I see people who have no idea what they're signing. And usually it's the salesperson giving them the contract, and they don't review it. They don't have an attorney, and they end up in situations where if the person dies, the family's in shock. Like one community I worked for, they continued to pay those, $8,000 a month until the condo was sold. But the person in charge of selling the condo is the sales director. So and they get paid no matter what. So it doesn't matter to them.
It goes on and on. Althea, also A Place for Mom is now up to 150% commission for the first month of rent. And so you would think this industry, you would think that the local placement specialists are still proprietors and their own companies. You'd think that they would be undercutting. They go, no, A Place for Mom's charging 150% the first month rent. I'm going to charge that. Oh, I want commission on the community fee now. There is a company for the bigger companies. It's called Welcome Software. They go through the documentation a little bit more. That might be a research you want to kind of take a look into. But it's becoming, it is draining our system. It is causing the cost of care to go up. And yes, there's people that are in hybrid roles. I'm an executive director, and I'm a placement specialist, and I'm a realtor. This is what's going on in the market, and like nobody's paying attention.
Right. And I want to say something about contracts as well. Whenever we looked at fraud cases at the DRE, a lot of them involved contracts that were onerous, that the signer was told, you don't need to read that. That's just legalese. It's standard in the industry. And there needs to be some focus too of the legislature, if they're looking at this on a larger scale, is what can be in a contract and what cannot be in a contract. And I tell you, I've seen some that are so outrageous. And what we heard from so many clients, complainants, was, I was told, you don't need to look at the contract. That's what everyone uses. It's a CAR contract, or this is a contract approved by DRE. So the frauds are going to continue to use bad contracts. It would be nice if the legislature would say, if there is a contract pertaining to senior placement, this is what it shall say. And
I-
these are the provisions that shall be included. And it cannot say this, and this. But
Right.
whenever you don't have regulation and you have the ability to make a lot of money and you have people who are out there engaged in semi-fraud by saying, yeah, I'm a specialist when they're not a specialist, then it's going to continue to go on and on.
Yeah, another thing that a place for mom does is like if a family contacted them and somebody else, a local placement, brings them in, because this happens all the day, all the time. Um, even though that community, this is just, I wanted everybody to hear this, is my friend is an executive director. He comes from a hospitality, food and beverage. He really cares about his seniors. He's fighting every day to get them more money for, get better quality food. So if a placement specialist, they got to pay for the marketer, $100,000 plus commissions, plus they're going to pay for the placement specialist who just brought somebody in locally. But then
Right.
placement mom goes, we had their name on file like 3 months ago. They're paying them, the local placement specialist, $5,000, and then a place for mom just to shut them up because they can't fight the contract. And he can't get 1 penny more than $7 a day for their breakfast, lunch, and dinner at this very nice luxury place. This is what's happening.
Right.
I just
Have you,
wanted to interject here. Today's Wall Street Journal has a front page article about CCRCs that are going bankrupt and how the bankruptcy laws are just draining all the patients and their families of everything that they have. So
Wow.
you might want to look at that.
Yeah, we need to review that. Uh, Maggie, quickly, did you have a question?
and Maggie, you have your microphone's
There-
on
Oh, there
mute.
you go. There you go. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the presentation and what you shared. I am a senior advocate. I really love my clientele. I try to do everything that I have to do to protect them. And in 32 years, I can tell you I've seen it all. And there is not a lot of protection that they have. And the latest situation I had was SRES realtor had a friend who wanted to do a reverse mortgage. Her husband committed suicide, and she wanted to do what was right for her, right, as a realtor, and did not sell her house. But then here comes another SRES realtor behind her back and sells the house and places her with one of these placement services. And ends up, I think she moved into like a senior community in Manteca somewhere. But anyways, sometimes as a professional for reverse, when we see situations like that, I have to step back. I have to do the reports. I have to bring APS. I have to bring case managers. And it's really hard for me in the community to not be able to help and support because I have to step back. So hearing you and hearing everyone comment today, it really hurts my heart, because these cases are true. They are
Yeah.
really true out there. So I just
And-
wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And,
well, so go ahead, Wayne.
You're welcome. I was going to say that senior abuse, senior fraud, senior economic shenanigans occur across the country. It happens all the time. There are people out there who look for seniors who have homes paid off, and what they'll do is they'll put a deed of trust on that
Oh, yeah.
property. It truly is disgusting,
Yeah.
and I'm not certain where all of this goes, but there should be attention by the state bar. By there have to be some prosecutors who have units that just focus on seniors, and I have to think there's some legislative committees dealing with seniors, and if there aren't, there should be,
There,
especially in the state of California.
reason why there isn't is because A Place for Mom has lobbyists that are actually writing these bills. They're paying off the senators, and it basically just stopped because after that investigation was opened up, they're like, we're not going to take money for A Place for Mom anymore. This is getting out of hand. And I've talked to California Commission on Aging. They are all aware of this. They want it to stop, but especially with this new administration, they're like, we're just fighting to keep Meals on Wheels and keep
Right,
kids
right,
food. Like
right,
they have
right,
bigger priorities. They're fighting
right.
to just keep them alive. And I'll tell you something else, because I know I've been doing this for a long time. Like, public guardian, APS, we have so many seniors, we have so many problems. We have so
We
many
got to wrap it
needs
up here, Jessica.
that seniors are dying in their homes alone,
Right,
right? That's
right.
that's what's happening. So it's like, where do we start, where do we finish? They feel like this is like, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for that.
Okay, obviously, I think there could be a whole department with your organization just for seniors. For elder law, the seniors, everything seniors, we can totally help you with that.
No, I would just like to say, unfortunately, sometimes, and I've seen this and I know Wayne as well, but sometimes for legislators truly to act, there's got to be documented victims, significant harm. And so if you're able to highlight this, document it, journal it, I mean, normally that's sometimes what it takes for legislators is there's this big public awareness, and you can get some of these families to really help talk about this is how we were harmed, and obviously the professionals as well. But what I would say, and back to my department days, we absolutely got complaints from the industry or from family victims where we would investigate cases where a licensee absolutely harmed a senior. And there were times where we would work with APS, work with the local authorities. They had law enforcement involved. And so I would just encourage all of you that if you are aware, especially if a licensee is involved, please report that to the department. I can tell you from my enforcement days, we will investigate, or they will investigate those complaints.
I gathered from this talk that a lot of these agencies who are senior referrals, they are not licensed.
Right, right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and my point is there needs to be some kind of licensure for them, some kind of oversight, and a regulatory scheme to be created to protect people from the bad folks who are putting people in A Place for Mom or other similar situations. And they don't care about the senior, they care about their own self-interest. And so it's a matter of it's focus, it's getting the right legislators. And listening to this, I can tell you this should be compelling to both Democrats and Republicans. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Roger Niello, who is a big auto dealership here, and he's a California state senator. He's a Republican who I've heard spoke. He's looking for issues where he can help regular citizens. He'd be a great person to talk to. On the Democratic
Yeah.
side, these new people that I mentioned, Stefani, Maggie Krell, who used to work in the AG's office, all good people to talk with, and just ask them, where can we go? How can we put something together? And if you have legislation that you've seen in other states, that's a good starting point. We send them that and say, hey, how about we have something like this in California?
We have a legislative lobbyist from our associations, our local association, that go to Sacramento and that talk to Sacramento. So we will reach out to them. I really do appreciate your time. We learned so much. We're going to have you back again and again and again. So,
Yes,
right.
and now you know us.
Yes,
And we
absolutely.
do.
We're
And
We'd be
thank
happy
you
to
very
come
much.
back.
for you to know us too, because we're making history right now, like Jessica was describing.
Aw,
Yeah,
I hope
totally.
so.
We're bringing these industries together, and we got Mike on here, and Mike understands everything as well. We want to create a collaboration of these industries, a very professional collaboration of these industries. That's what we're working towards.
in the
Again, I really
meantime,
appreciate your
in the
time.
meantime,
Yeah.
people should do their own due diligence too.
Yes,
before doing
yes.
this. Do your own due diligence.
Absolutely. And as you know, though, when someone, a lot of people, they'll just Google and they'll write, because they've seen a place for mom advertised on TV, so they'll type that in, or they'll type in senior residential expert or something, and they'll find someone who's not licensed. The question is, how do we get them to you guys? How do we get them to the good people? And that's the threshold question.
That's
I
what
know.
we're working on.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yep.
All right.
Totally. Thank you so much, everybody, for your
you.
time. It was
Thank you.
this was
Thank you.
great. This was
All
great.
right. All
Everybody
right.
have a great week. We'll see.
You too. You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.